working men, jovial insults and cheerful vulgarity, pleasantries that relieved the monotony of repetitive hard work. A fifth man was watching them, standing by the cart, holding a short horsewhip. He was better dressed, with a blue tailcoat and polished black knee boots. His name was Will Riddick. He was 30 years old, and he was the eldest son of the Squire of Badford. The field was his father's, as were the horse and cart. Will had thick black hair cut to chin length, and he looked discontented. She could guess why. Supervising the turnip harvest was not his job, and he felt it was beneath him. But the squire's factor had fallen ill, and Sal guessed that Will had been drafted in to replace him, unwillingly. At Sal's side, her child stumbled barefoot across the boggy ground, struggling to keep pace with her, until she turned and stooped and picked him up effortlessly, then walked on with him in one arm, his head on her shoulder. She held his thin, warm body a little tighter than she needed to, just because she loved him so much. She would have welcomed more children, but she had suffered 2 miscarriages and a stillbirth. She had stopped hoping and had begun to tell herself that, poor as they were, 1 child was enough. She was devoted to her child, probably too much so, for children were often taken away by illness or accident, and she knew that would break her heart. She had named him Christopher, but when he was learning to talk, he had mangled his name to Kit, and that was what he was called now. He was 6 years old, and small for his age. Sal hoped that he would grow up to be like Harry, slim but strong. He had certainly inherited his father's red hair. It was time for the midday meal, and Sal was carrying a basket with cheese, bread, and 3 wrinkled apples. Some way behind her was another village wife, Annie Mann, a vigorous woman the same age as Sal. 2 more on the same errand were approaching from the opposite direction, down the hill, baskets on their arms, children in tow. The men stopped work gratefully, wiping their muddy hands on their breeches and moving toward the stream where they could sit on a bed of grass. Sal reached the path and let Kit down gently. Will Riddick took a watch on a chain from his waistcoat pocket and consulted it with a scowl. "It's not noon yet," he called out. He was lying, Sal felt sure, but no one else had a watch. "Keep working, you men," he ordered. Sal was not surprised. Will had a mean streak. His father, the squire, could be hard-hearted, but Will was worse. "Finish the job, then have your dinners," he said. There was a note of disdain in the way he said, "your dinners," as if there was something contemptible about labourers' meals. Will himself would be going back to the manor house for roast beef and potatoes, she thought, and probably a jug of strong beer to go with it. 3 of the men bent to their work again, but the 4th did not. He was Ike Clitheroe, Harry's uncle, a grey-bearded man of about 50. In a mild tone he said, "Better not overload the cart, Mr. Riddick. You leave it to me to be the judge of that." "Begging your pardon," Ike persisted, "but that brake is about worn through." "There's nothing wrong with the damned cart," Will said. "You just want to stop work early. You always do." Sal's husband spoke up. Harry was never slow to join in an argument. "You should listen to Uncle Ike," he said to Will. "Otherwise you could lose your cart and your horse, and all your bloody turnips too." The other men laughed, but it was never wise to have a joke at the expense of the gentry, and Will frowned blackly and said, "You shut your insolent mouth, Harry Clitheroe." Sal felt Kit's little hand creep into her own. His father was getting into a conflict, and young Kit sensed the danger. Insolence was Harry's weakness. He was an honest man and a hard worker, but he did not believe the gentry were better than him. Sal loved him for his pride and his independent thinking, but the masters resented it, and he was often in trouble for insubordination. However, he had made his point now, and he said no more, but went back to work. The women put down their baskets on the bank of the stream. Sal and Annie went to help their men gather turnips, while the other 2 wives, who were older, sat with the dinners. The work was finished quickly. At that point, it became obvious that Will had made a mistake in leaving the cart at the foot of the hill. He should have stationed it 50 yards farther down the track, to give the horse room.